Switchback VR is the highly anticipated second coming of Rush of Blood over on the PlayStation VR1. Rush of Blood offered some unforgettable moments for a lot of players, and now with Switchback VR, it's making its way all the way over to the PlayStation VR2. Now, the PlayStation VR2, from a technical standpoint, is a great headset. However, with the recent stir and controversy when it comes to the game's low textures and overall resolution, it really begs the question, is Switchback VR really worth $40? Now, to start off, I came into this game with an open mind, and even after watching a few reviews, I still felt as if I wanted to give this game a chance. Now, the gameplay was overall very smooth for me, and it runs at 60Hz, reprojected at 120, so it is pretty smooth overall. However, I didn't find the low textures and resolution to really play that big of a role in breaking me away from my experience. Sure, this was no Horizon Call of the Mountain, but it certainly wasn't a No Man's Sky when it comes to overall blurriness. And when it came to shooting off the enemies, it felt like a very decent experience, and it was pretty fluid for the most part. And I found myself consistently shooting at skulls and empty crates because each shot can increase your score and move you higher on the leaderboard. However, it is important to understand that this leaderboard does not capture one of the biggest things when it comes to shooting, and that's accuracy. Now, the levels all have different paths that you can take, and each will lead back to the main track. After each level, you're left with a thought of curiosity and wanting to run back the track again to experience something you might have missed. And one huge feature that was teased a lot in the build-up for this game was the eye tracking when you were in the room full of mannequins. Now, if you didn't know what this was before, every time you blinked, the mannequins would move in different positions. And for somebody that had an open mind to this game, and for somebody that was really hyped for this specific area of the game, I can say for me personally, it 100% lived up to that hype. And another pretty huge thing that standed out for me when it came to just the gameplay was having to move my body every time there were certain obstacles in the way. Now, throughout the game, you will encounter poles and skeletons and barriers that will try to impede you from going through them. And if you do end up hitting some of these objects or obstacles, you'll actually feel the vibration inside of your headset that alerts you to let you know that you just took some damage. And I never thought I'd say this, but I actually found the puzzles in this game to actually be pretty refreshing. Now, this is coming from somebody, and I know there's a lot of people out there that absolutely hate puzzles in games, or at least are not good at them. And I would consider myself to be at the low bottom tier when it comes to solving puzzles, and this was not overwhelming at all. It was very simple, and like I said, it was pretty refreshing overall, and I wasn't left completely going crazy, kind of like an Uncharted puzzle. Though there was a lot of positive, there ultimately was a lot of negative as well. And a lot of this really came from me just wanting this game to make the next generational leap in virtual reality. Now, though it did do that in certain ways, there were some things that I was pretty bummed out about. For example, a lot of the levels simply just were not that scary. And coming from Rush of Blood, this was a pretty high expectation for me. And the only time I was truly terrified was when I was in the house full of dolls. And I was also pretty disappointed in the lack of crazy dips in the roller coaster. See, countless times I wanted to go down huge dips and at least get scared from the heights, which I am terrified of. And having these dips in place of certain things that they had put in the game, such as different jump scares and dark scenes, this would have definitely added a refreshing feel. Instead, the roller coaster ultimately just felt like a simple train ride. And though the gunplay was smooth, as I said before, I was disappointed in the haptic feedback when it came to shooting certain guns. For example, the revolver that I was given really didn't stand out as much as the basic pistol that I was given in the beginning of the game. And I also found a lot of the enemies that I encountered to feel really soulless. Now, obviously that's the point, is for them to feel creepy and scary and feel as if maybe they don't have a soul. But a huge part in any horror game is to provide an experience for the viewer or the player that feels real, no matter how crazy or exaggerated the story is. For example, if a character in a movie consistently cries the entire time the movie is going on, when it comes time for them to actually have an emotional moment, that character no longer gives off any emotions to the viewer or the player. While if a character holds in those emotions throughout the movie, it creates a certain suspense all movie, until eventually the character breaks, and so does the player or the viewer. In this case, I felt that the jump scares did not feel as if they were that big or immersive. I didn't feel like they were going to be overly crazy. I felt like they were pretty easy to calculate overall, and in certain darkness situations, I felt as if the game was relying too heavily on them to create immersion, when in reality, I almost calculated each jump scare while I was in a dark scene. Though I did enjoy some claustrophobic moments when it came to going into a different destination. Now, I am disappointed that developers pushed this game back and still, to my eyes, didn't fulfill the true next generation experience for not just me, but for many other players. That's not to say that this game isn't good or at least decent. And I'm also very disappointed that they didn't take advantage of the new dynamic foveated rendering on the PlayStation VR2, which is a complete game changer when it comes to new PlayStation VR2 games. That being said, there are a lot of games that still don't take advantage of this. Overall, overall, I would rate this game a 7.2 out of 10. Now, if you have the $40 to spend, then you're going to get a pretty good experience overall. It's definitely not a bad game, and it's not something that I would completely throw in the garbage or look down upon just because of the textures or the overall quality. Now, hopefully with some updates down the line, I can bump this score up, because currently there is nothing like this style of game on any other VR device, and it is a good addition to the PlayStation VR2 library. And if you made it this far in the video, I now know that you like virtual reality at least a little bit. So it would truly mean a lot to me if you could like and share this video. And if for those of you that have already supported this channel, you guys all know, and if you didn't already, well, now you do. I love you all so much. And with that being said, if you want to know a little bit more about the PlayStation VR2 and how to properly take care of it, click on this video right here. I'm JizzleVR, and I will catch you all in the next video.